I did want to do was honor the tradition that Joel has begun of doing current event messages. So I decided for this Sunday, kind of before I realized we'd be in the park, so I'm not exactly sure how appropriate the setting is to this, I would do my current event message for this Sunday, and the current event that I have chosen to talk about, as Kristen led into, is AI, specifically the challenges of AI. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. The challenges of AI and how, more specifically, the thing we think about all the time, how can we, as followers of Christ, follow Christ in this context that we live, surrounded by and in our lives intersecting with AI all the time. That's what we're talking about this morning. Couple of prefaces to that, too, as we get into that. Number one, I am not an expert on AI. I've read a lot of people who are experts, done a lot, thought a lot about this. What I am experienced at is contextual theology. That is trying to answer that question. How do we follow Jesus in changing contexts? And the advancement of AI is part of the changing context that we're dealing with. So I'm going to be talking about that this morning. You're gonna hear a lot of things from me. This is a mind bender of a message, so I hope you're ready for that. And if you're not, you can just listen to the birds and feel the breeze without your mind wandering. Hope that you'll catch some of that. But the reason I chose AI, I wanted to talk about that is, number one, it is certainly a current event, isn't it? It's in our news everywhere. And that's news from right here in East Lampeter Township to international news. This week, our president signed an agreement with Prime Minister Starmer of England, of Great Britain, you saw this in the news, about how our countries are going to work together in this matter of AI, artificial intelligence. So it is definitely a current event. It is definitely in the news. And it also is interacting with all of our lives. In the last 6 months, and I haven't tried to do this, this has just happened, I have had conversations with people in my parents' age group who are in their 80s. I have had conversations with high school kids. I work in Cocalico School District with their tennis program. I coach girls tennis there. I deal with high school girls a lot, talk to them, and everybody in generations all in between, that the matter of AI has just come up. It cannot be dodged. AI is in your life, you're dealing with it, you're working with it. You may not be typing things into ChatGPT like Kristen was talking about, but AI is intersecting with your life. Whether you are trying to get a prescription refilled, schedule your car to have its oil changed, make a doctor appointment, find information about certain things, or actually using AI like ChatGPT or Gemini, AI is in your life. You can't dodge it. There are things that come along, technological things especially, that we can dodge. I feel as though I have successfully dodged social media. I know some of you love social media and you're out there, I'm not condemning social media. I'm just telling you, I have had a bad feeling about social media personally from the beginning and have been able to dodge it. When MySpace first came out, remember that? Some people in the congregation that I was serving at the time made huge messes with MySpace, and it gave me a bad taste in my mouth right from the beginning. So I decided I didn't want to have a lot to do with social media, and I have maintained that. As Facebook came and it became a great big thing, I just did not. I do not have a Facebook page. I do not have Instagram. I have never been on Pinterest, although my daughter pointed out that's not really social media as she understands it, so I don't even know what I'm talking about here. I don't know anything about TikTok. As I told you, I work with teenage girls, so I do know what a TikTok dance is, unfortunately. But that's all that I know about TikTok. I've been able to dodge social media, and that's okay. That's worked out fine. But you cannot dodge AI, as I've just explained to you. No matter what you do today, you're interacting with AI more and more even if you don't even actually realize it. And I will talk some more about that as we go through talking about the challenges of AI. But one of the other things about AI that motivated me to want to talk about this today is it represents a larger challenge that all of us are facing in our society today, and as trying to follow Jesus in this context. And that is the rapidly changing nature of our culture. Our culture is rapidly changing. AI is a perfect example of that. You may remember Joel preached one of these current event messages on AI just a number of months ago. Now, I'm not preaching this message to in any way rebut or disagree with anything that Joel said. I loved that message. I thought he did a great job, and that was all helpful. But the picture has changed. The challenges are different now than they were even a number of months ago when Joel talked about this. You'll hear me talk about some different things than what Joel talked about, because we're seeing AI is changing and has changed our culture in a very short period of time. Now, that's only one, that is one example of a number of things that are happening. We're living in strange times. Our culture is changing more rapidly now than it ever has before. There have been periods in American history where the culture changed rapidly. The American Revolution, people saw their lives change very quickly as we declared our independence from England. The time of the Civil War, and especially right after the Civil War in the South, boy, the culture changed rapidly. The outbreak of World War II brought tremendous and rapid changes to our culture, but those were isolated, catastrophic instances that were followed by and preceded by relative periods of calm in terms of the change of our culture. Those periods of calm are gone now, and separate and apart from catastrophic events, our culture is just changing rapidly, with the advancement of technology being a big part of that. I have a psychologist friend who says that now most of his practice and that of his colleagues is dedicated to helping people deal with the psychological stress of this rapid change. You feel that. You know what I'm talking about. You get that weariness and that sickness of how quickly things are changing and how hard and sometimes exhausting it is to keep up with. My psychologist friend also says it's not mentally healthy for people, and you've seen that in the news too. This rapid change is hard to deal with. Well, that is the case with AI as well. And I just think about that for a moment. If 5 years ago, I would have stood before you and said, you know what, in 5 years, AI will be so interwoven into our lives that we won't be able to avoid it, a lot of you would have thought I was crazy. I think I would have thought I was crazy. It sounds like science fiction, but here it is in no time. AI has come. It's in our lives in all kinds of ways. So we need to deal with it. We need to think about it and face the challenges of it in a Christ-like way. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. So that kind of sets the stage for why and how I'm going to do this. So let's begin with let's go back to the question that Kristen raised for us. What is AI and what makes it so different? Very simply, and those of you who are more into this will realize some of this I'm oversimplifying, but we just have to think in more simple terms then, because I'm not really a techie person either. AI, artificial intelligence, it represents a significant change in the way computers work and how they are able then to do. Artificial intelligence. Now let's remember that word, artificial. What we're talking about is artificial. It's been manufactured by people. It is not the same as our natural human intelligence. And we'll talk more about that in a bit and what makes that significant. But artificial intelligence in computers is a significant leap forward in how they work and what they're able to do. Computers, of course, are not new. They've been around a long, long time. Computers actually predate the electronic age. Who knows what a slide rule is? Who remembers what those were? My dad had a slide rule. I thought it was cool. That was a type of computer, a mechanical computer pre-digital, that was able to mechanically do calculations. Those kinds of things have been around for a while. Then, of course, the electronic age came. Who remembers the days of the handheld Texas Instrument calculator? I had one of those when I was and those were super cool because they could do mathematical calculations like we were being taught to do in school, but all of a sudden, not only could a machine do them, they could do them much more quickly and much more efficiently than our brains could do them. Basically, and again, I'm oversimplifying things a bit, but basically that has how computers have worked ever since. They electronically do calculations and more complicated calculations. So this, of course, led to electronic storage of documents, all the electronic information that's out there and available to us. Electronic games came along. They're based on calculations that are done, millions of calculations per second to interact with all those amazing graphics that you can see and those kinds of things. But computers did calculations, and they executed algorithms. Pardon the term there. Algorithms are it's like a recipe. That's just a series of commands that get done by calculation, and that's what computers did. AI represents a significant step forward. Instead of just calculating, instead of just storing data, and instead of just giving us access to that data that is stored electronically, the internet came along and expanded our ability to access data and information greatly. Now, computers are able to not only store and access that data, they're able to process that data, which is something the human mind is very good at doing, and something that we are not used to machines being able to do, and suddenly they can, as Kristen described it. You can put questions into an AI-based chatbot, and it will give you an answer. Not only does it access data, it processes that data for you and gives you a result in the form that you ask it to give you. I can ask it to tell me describe the three causes of World War I to a fourth grade level, to a high school level, to a college-educated level, and it will do that. It can process information and present it to you in a way that you request. It's something we're used to people's minds doing. This is what teachers do. But now a machine is able to do it. We're also able to execute logic on a much higher level, to take data and not just repeat that data, but connect ideas to each other to reach conclusions and get new data. Other thing that computers are able to do now that represents AI is they're able to learn. Computer programs before, as they ran and did things, as they became less efficient or people realized they weren't doing exactly what they needed, it took a computer programmer, a person, to change that program to do better. Now computers can do that themselves. Their programs can reprogram themselves to better do the things that they're doing. They can learn. These are things we are not used to machines doing, and that's what makes this technology disconcerting for many. We'll talk about that shortly too, but also presents a number of challenges to us. It also presents tremendous opportunities. So let me start with that. Let me say that right here at the beginning too. I'm not here to tell you that AI is bad. It can do all kinds of amazing things that can serve us really well, like any other kind of platform. It can also be used for all kinds of negative things and can negatively stress our minds in this area of rapid change as is happening with us. So how do we navigate all of that? How do we deal with all of that as followers of Christ and work in this world, operate and do that in this world that's full of AI in this way? Well, that's why I've entitled this message, The Challenges of AI. I want to talk about the ways in which this new technology presents challenges to us. Some of these, as I say them, you'll say, yeah, I've been thinking about that. Maybe some of them will be new to you, but we'll think about that. And then I'm going to come to and infuse in it a bit too, some things that the scriptures tell us, that the Word of God tells us, that help us navigate all of this. So let me begin here. I've made a list of challenges that we face because of AI. A number of them, most of them, are not new. The challenges we've been facing as a society for a long time, we just face them on a new platform now as we have AI to deal with. And the first one, all of you have felt this at some time, I know, have thought about it because it's so suffused our society for a long time, is what I call the fear factor. Okay, maybe some of you even felt some fear as we're describing what machines can now do, the learning they can do, the decisions they can make about presenting information and all those kinds of things. This has created fear in a lot of people, and unfortunately, our science fiction down through the years has stoked and fed those fears. You know, it was right after in the post-World War II era that this began, when Isaac Asimov wrote his famous book, I, Robot, 1950. I, Robot is a collection of 9 stories that explore what might happen when man can make a machine that looks like a man, like a human being, and can think like a man. Began to ask the question about AI and what it could be. That began things. But then down through history up to where we are now, this issue just kept coming up in our science fiction. In the 1960s, we had 2001: A Space Odyssey. We had Star Trek, the original series, where space is being explored in these great ships that are powered by a all-knowing, all-powerful computer who may indeed do some nefarious things to people. In the 1970s came Star Wars, which is populated by these characters called droids, who seem to act and talk and are like people, but they're not. They're machines with artificial intelligence brains. C-3PO is a loved character from all that, seems to even have a personality. He's an example of AI, though, and where all of this could go. That came in the 70s and the 80s. Fast forward to the 90s, the world of the Matrix came along and presented us with a dystopian world where AI-powered computers have actually taken over the world and enslaved the human race so efficiently the human race doesn't know it's been enslaved. And that was all a very frightening kind of thing. And Morpheus just tells Neo this all began with AI. Could be. Isaac Asimov's book was made into a very frightening movie starring Will Smith about what can happen when AI decides to turn against human beings. Stoked a lot of fear in all of that. Marvel Cinematic Universe has characters like Ultron, Jarvis, who have AI brains and are able to do various good and bad kinds of things. All science fiction, but that all science fiction has suddenly become reality with AI being here and intelligent, at least artificially intelligent, computers are here and interacting with our lives. So there's lots of fear surrounding this. Now let's take this out of science fiction and into the real. Just this week, a new book was released by some AI experts, people who actually know about this stuff, as opposed to me, who's trying to piece this all together. They entitled that book, When Someone Builds It, It Will Kill Us All. It's about the future of AI. Now that's stoking fear, isn't it? That's stoking fear. They're suggesting and saying in that book that AI as we have it now isn't dangerous, is not a problem. But we are one generation away from creating computers that would have the capability to destroy the human race. That's not a fear that is new. We've all been living with that one for a long, long time. We've already created the machine that could destroy the human race, right? That's called the World Nuclear Weapons Stockpile. We've been living in that world for at least, 50, 60 years. But anyway, all that to say, AI is stoking a lot of fear. I think there are some things in Scripture that address that we can think about right away. What does the Bible tell us about fear? Perfect love drives out fear. I think our history has shown us that when we make decisions out of fear, a lot of really bad things happen. I don't think it's wise for us to give in to fear of these things. I think it's wise to do what we're doing right now. Talk about these things and see what we can actually know and understand about them and approach them with an understanding that we as Christians can find ways to follow Christ through these things and in these things and live with these things. And AI is not going to become the God of our world. The God of all the universe is the God who we serve and are interested in. More about that in what's coming. But there's no question, there's lots of fear, and that's a big challenge to us dealing with AI, to overcome some fears to deal with that. There are other challenges, though, that come more directly right to us. You may have experienced some of this fear and are not quite sure what to do with it. And there's other challenges that are coming. Not new, but new on a platform. How about the challenge of resources? What resources are we willing to commit in our society and world to this matter of AI? Whenever we talk about resources, I hate to use this word, but it's what it actually means. Distribution of resources in a society is a political issue. That's what politics is, how resources get distributed. So that it becomes a political issue, and it is, and you know that. We can take the partisan part of this off the table right now, so let me just do that for you. AI helped me get my details straight on this, so what I can say, I used AI to find some things out, made sure that the sourcing of it was correct, but when Joe Biden was president of the United States and Democrats had control of at least one of the houses of Congress, budgets that were proposed there and spending plans that were put together in that time dedicated billions of dollars to the advancement and support of AI going forward. So our government tax money is going to be spent advancing and supporting AI. You might have noticed Joe Biden is not the president of the United States anymore. You might have noticed that that party, the Democratic Party, no longer has control of the Senate and the House. The great, big, beautiful bill was recently passed that puts a lot of spending priorities into place that are different from things that were from the previous administration. President Trump's great, big, beautiful bill dedicates billions of American taxpayer dollars to the advancement and support of AI. So this is not a partisan issue in our politics. Our government's going to put a lot of resources into AI going forward. But resourcing isn't just about government money. And you all know this because this has been in our newspapers, and it's very much of a local issue. Right here in Pennsylvania, right here in East Lampeter Township. You may have read in the paper in recent months, 3 Mile Island nuclear plant outside of Harrisburg. Was the accident back in the 70s, and one of their nuclear reactors there was destroyed. Through all of that, the other nuclear reactor was still operating until several years ago when it became inefficient. Wasn't efficient to generate electricity out of that nuclear reactor, and it was completely shut down. That nuclear reactor is being refurbished, is going to be restarted, is going to start generating electricity again, and all of the energy generated from that nuclear reactor is already committed to be purchased by Microsoft to power computers for AI and cloud computing. Right here in Pennsylvania, that's happening. But right here in Lancaster County, another challenge, another resourcing issue is happening right around us. There are 3 proposed data centers, 2 in Lancaster City, 1 here in East Lampeter Township at Greenfield Corporate Center, that are making lots of news. Now, just let me back up a second and explain the connection here. Everything that we have out of the cloud, our internet, even all of this AI, all of this takes place inside a physical computer someplace. So more and more physical computers, more and more microchips, more and more places where physical computers are going to be needed to run advancing AI. And this is happening right here in our area. These data centers are places where physical computers will be operating to run AI, to run cloud computing. That's proposed to happen at an existing building in Greenfield, and in 2 proposed buildings that are going to be built in Lancaster City. This is raising questions. How much electricity is going to be needed to run these computers? Computers generate a lot of heat. How much electricity and water is going to be needed to cool these computer data centers? Nobody exactly knows, and that's raising a lot of questions about that. And as objections to these data centers are being raised and questions are coming, pardon me if I sound critical here, but it's apparent to many that our leaders in East Lampeter Township, leaders in Lancaster City, have been caught unprepared for these questions, unprepared for how a resource is going to be distributed to meet those needs. But one thing is certainly clear, not just in East Lampeter Township, not just in Pennsylvania, more electricity is going to be needed to run computer data centers. What's going to happen when a resource has its demand increased before its supply can be increased? Basic rule of economics. Prices go up. So we're going to be paying the cost of that, not out of government funding, but right out of our own pockets as the prices of that go up. Now, this is not a new problem. There's always questions about resourcing in our society, but one of the things that happens with that is as resources become scarce and become more expensive, that always affects the least of us the worst. Nobody likes seeing their electric bills go up. That's going to be an inconvenience for everybody, no matter where we are on the financial spectrum. But there are people who, when their cost of electricity goes up, that raises questions like, am I going to have to choose between buying groceries and paying the electric bill or paying my rent and paying the electric bill? Most of us aren't going to have to ask those questions, but there are people who will. Lots of people. Anytime that resourcing like that becomes a question, you and I, as followers of Christ, have to remember what Jesus has told us, that what you've done to the least of these, you have done unto me. We as Christians have to be concerned about that, concerned about the way those distribution of resources affect the least of us, the poor, the struggling, the people who are going to really have a problem with that. Don't have magic answers for that, but I do know we need to be concerned about that as we think about resourcing for both AI and a whole lot of other things. It's one of the challenges that we're facing with AI. Another challenge that is related to that is what I call the challenge of automation. Again, something that is not new, but something that is here, and that is as technology advances and is able to do what people used to do, people lose their jobs as a result. Let me tell you just quickly how old that problem is. It's at least 325 years old. In the year 1701, a very now famous man named Jethro Tull, who a rock band in the 80s is named after, but he actually was a historical figure, Jethro Tull. He's known as the father of modern agriculture. He invented a machine. It was powered by horses. It was called a seed drill, and it was able to, he hoped, more efficiently plant seeds than was being done in all of agriculture in England at the time. That's where Jethro Tull lived. He invented this machine called a seed drill, more efficiently plant seeds. Jethro Tull was excited about his new invention and couldn't wait to get it working and get using it on his very large farm, except Jethro Tull ran into a problem. He couldn't get his farm hands to help him work these machines or work on them. You know why? Because his farm hands realized something that Jethro Tull hadn't thought of, and that was, if he can get his machine to work, he wouldn't need farm hands anymore. They knew they would lose their jobs if this machine worked. Jethro Tull didn't see that. Now, hasn't completely been that way. Here we are 325 years later, we still need farm hands. But it's certainly been true over that time across all kinds of industries and all kinds of places. Lots of things that used to be done by people are now being done by machines in all different kinds of ways. AI brings another level to that thing. Now, there's people who are paid to think and perform calculations, perform mental intelligence kinds of things that we don't need people to do anymore because machines can do that. This is affecting the service industry already. It's shaking the service industry as things like retail and food service are already seeing places where people with an entry-level kinds of jobs aren't needed anymore because of what AI can do. Again, Those of us who are following Christ need to be concerned about things that affect the least of us. We need to be thinking about this as a challenge and a problem. Not a new one we've been facing for a long time, but it's there. Automation, how it affects us as well. Another challenge of AI. Okay, another challenge of AI that I just think is fascinating, we experienced on a very personal level in our family, has to do with what I would call limitations. What are the limits of this? So machines can think in this new way now. What can and can't they do? Let me tell you a story from our family about this that I think illustrates it and then kind of illustrated a point I didn't even realize was being made. My daughter Emily, you all know, and Emily has spoken here, and one of the things that she talked about when she spoke is her love of fashion and her love of clothing. She gets and sources clothing from all kinds of places, from reuse-it shops and thrift shops to all kinds of providers. Well, something happened to her that may have happened to you in recent years. She ordered some clothing from one of these national brands and did not receive the right thing. Her order was not filled correctly. So she needed to straighten that out. She's paying for something she didn't get, so she's trying to straighten that out. So, trying to solve that problem, she went to the company's website and interacted with their chat. You know how chats work. There are chats for all different kinds of things. Well, when you interact with those chats, you're interacting with AI. Their AI is working to solve the problem that you're having. Ultimately, the problem she had turned out to be complicated, and the chat told her, I can't solve this problem for you. You need to call a customer service phone number. So she called the customer service phone number, got another AI-based chat. In a few words, a computer voice says, in a few words, tell me your problem, and we'll try to solve it. So she did, and it asked her some more questions, and she interacted with, again, this is AI, interacted with AI, but ultimately the conclusion, AI chat said, I'm unable to solve your problem. Let me connect you with a customer service representative who will handle your problem. And she didn't have to wait too long until she was talking to an actual person. And the actual person, she described her problem to the actual person, and he said, okay, I'm looking at my computer records here. I see that. I see what happened. Okay, here's what we can do. Here's how we can solve that. And after talking for about 45 seconds with a human being, the problem was solved. She came up against a limitation of AI. AI couldn't solve this problem. It needed a person. Right after that happened, I read a fascinating article, again, by AI experts who are working in this area of call center problem solving, which is a huge thing, right? Everything needs support these days, from our cars to our lawnmowers to our medications. Everything's got some kind of call center to support it. Read an article by a fellow who works specifically in dealing with that, who said that AI is majorly changing that industry, but less so than they thought, because they are, through that usage of AI, encountering all kinds of problems that AI can't solve. And where is it that we still need people to solve problems, and where is it that we don't need people anymore because the computer can solve the problem? That's a question, a major challenge that is coming. Where do we need people? Some in the call center business have resorted to hiring back people they thought they could do without because they need them. And that will change as the technology changes, but that's a huge factor too. What are the limits of this technology? We don't know the answer to that yet, and that's part of the fear of all of this. How is this going to work, and where is it going to go? And all of that is an issue. Here's another one that's more straightforward. Just think with me for a minute about what this technology can do. AI is able to solve problems. It's able to process massive amounts of data and present you with a result of that, present you with information in a digestible form. AI is also able to interact with images, create images, create moving images and videos, interact and change those things too. It doesn't take a lot of imagination for us to think about all of the potential evil that could be created out of that kind of thing. Again, not a new problem. All kinds of technologies have been used for all kinds of evil down through history. Here's just another one, but we need to be aware of that too. Aware of where evil is being created. And unfortunately, part of what drives evil being created is in our society, evil can often be profitable. So people are highly motivated to do evil things with whatever technology they have. We need to be aware of that and see where that is happening and stand strongly against that where we can see it. That's a whole other sermon. That's a whole complicated mess with all of this, but it is a challenge that we face. Evil comes into things. We have to think about it in all kinds of places. Well, I've been talking about challenges that are not new, things that are just coming to us in a new way through AI. But here's something that I think is new for AI that is a challenge, and maybe a challenge for you. I encountered it in a very personal way, and since learned about the more global threat of it through some articles that I read. Let me tell you my story. This might sound familiar to you. I actually mentioned this in a sermon transition I did a number of weeks ago when I was hosting. I use AI. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Gemini. But it's very helpful to solve some simple problems and get you to information that you needed to know. So, a number of months ago, I was reading a book that was written in the 1930s. And in that book, some of the characters are talking about another book. And the plot of that other book factors into the plot of the one I was reading, and I got confused. I didn't know what book they were talking about, or things were assumed in the story that I didn't know or understand. Maybe people back in the 1930s understood it better than I did, but I needed some help. So I asked Gemini, I asked it, what book is being referred to with these literary references, and put in the references in the story. Gemini said back to me, that's interesting, Kirk. I can't really give you the direct answer. It might be this or it might be this. Give me some possibilities. Well, those possibilities didn't help me. I want to know the answer. And just as I'm thinking, what are those what can I do next? Gemini said to me, Kirk, you could help me by providing me with some more information or maybe more of a context where these things came from. So I put into it and I said, I am reading this book by this author written in this year, in this chapter, these things came up. What book is being referenced to? Gemini responds and says, thanks, Kirk, that was really helpful. The answer to your question is this and this and this, and this book was this, and it's being referred to in this way. And I wasn't quite sure at that point I was going to take the machine's word for it. So I asked it, I said, Gemini, can you tell me how you got to that conclusion? And it said, sure, here's an article, a review of that book that you're reading that talks about this. Here's another place. It gave me some sources written by people that cleared that up. And before I knew it, I was typing into my AI program, thanks, Gemini, that was really helpful. And before I pressed send, I just had this glitch in my mind. And I thought, now wait a minute. Thanks, Gemini, that was really helpful. That's what I say to customer service representatives who help me, but the difference is they're people. This is not a person. I'm reacting to it as though it were a person because it's talking to me like a person, but it's not a person. It's artificial intelligence. Just a weird moment. But it did feel inappropriate to me. I shouldn't be thanking a machine. I mean, I goofily, we like our cars, we like our tools, but we don't thank the hammer for helping us drive the nails in. It's just dumb. So I just put that all aside till I read a fascinating, disturbing article by an AI expert who was saying, this is happening across our society now. People, especially people with emotional problems, especially people in places of crisis, especially people with some learning disabilities, are failing to be able to discern the difference between a person and AI because of the way they interact with it. It talks to us like a person. And people are beginning to use it for not gaining information or finding out things or solving problems, but just for friendship, companionship, answer to loneliness, conversation. Read another article where high school students were surveyed and interviewed. What percentage of American high school students do you think have interacted with an AI chatbot for conversation, friendship, companionship? not an appropriate use of that technology. How many? 50%. 50% of high school students have interacted with AI this way, in experiencing confusion about whether or not this is a person or not, or someone they can have a personal interaction with. You can't. It's artificial intelligence. But that's happening. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I read another fascinating article. A news editor from ABC, following very careful protocols, got permission to talk to some of these high school students who have done this. With parents' permission, some of this done with parents right there. And just ask them, why would you do that? Why would you interact with an AI chat this way? And they answered this. Number one, it's always available. Sometimes I text my friends and they don't answer. Sometimes I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning and nobody wants to text with me. AI will always be there. But more disturbingly, chatbots, AI, never judges me, never disagrees with me, never tells me I'm thinking wrong about things, never tells me I'm being dramatic, never says the things that my parents are often saying to me. It never does that. And that is another challenge of AI that is a major problem. Not only are people confusing it with people, which is something we have to steer very clear of, AI will always go the direction you want it to go. We see this in the algorithms that drive ads that are pushed toward us and information from news that is pushed toward us. We always control the conversation. We're never pushed back on. We're never corrected. It has driven people to only news sources that kind of agree with other things they've heard. But that is one of the key differences between human interactions and AI interactions. In our human interactions, people disagree with us. People don't like what we're saying. We have to deal with the fact that there's pushback, that there's another person who might feel differently or do that. AI is not going to do that. Maybe technology will overcome that, maybe not. But I will tell you, for me, and I thought about this, some of the most meaningful human interactions I have in my life are when my friends and my wife and my family members don't agree with me. When they challenge me, when they say, hey, now wait a minute, that's not, they feel differently about things. That's when, and that is when we truly learn. I learned that long ago. Nobody learns from a place of comfort. We learn when we're made uncomfortable and have to think different things. That's why school was such a hard thing for a lot of us, because it makes us uncomfortable. AI doesn't do that. It's designed to make us comfortable and comfortably answer things, which is different from our human interactions, and a very serious problem. Okay, I did not use AI to come up with my list of challenges of AI. These are things that I have just seen. Maybe you can think of some more. Maybe you can come up with some more. But to conclude here today, I want us to remember 3 pretty basic, pretty clear things from Scripture that help us with all of this. And number 1 starts at the very beginning of the Bible. Kristen made reference to this in the beginning of our service. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And we read, cutting through a whole lot of things we could talk a whole lot more about, we read in that creation account that God's creation of human beings was a very special creation. It was different than everything else. And in our image, let us make humanity. Male and female, I will make them. I will make them in our image. Human beings are made in the image of God. And that makes us able to do certain things that no one else can do. AI is disconcerting because it does things we're used to only having humans do before, but there are going to be things that only humans can only ever do, because they're created in God's image. And artificial intelligence is not. It's made to mimic human behavior. One of the most fascinating articles that I read in preparing for this message is one that was in Christianity Today recently. It was entitled, Why AI Will Never Know Anything. Let's think for a minute together about this matter of knowing and how we know things. AI knows things as data and information and facts that it can put together and can present to us and can analyze. We do that sometimes, but We know things in a very different way. Let me give you a very personal example. Our family's been very transparent with all of you that we've experienced some significant losses in our family. Deborah and I have lost several children. Our son died when he was 17. We lost a daughter to infant mortality. We've lost some children in our family to failed adoption. Those things have happened to us. We've talked to some of you about that. We've shared together in some of those things. When I talk about those things, and Debbie and I have done grief presentations and some grief counseling with people and those kinds of things, when we talk about those things, an answer that I often get, something people often say to me in those things is, I can't imagine what that must be like. I can't imagine what losing a child at 17 is like. And I often reply to that and say, yeah, don't try to do that. Trying to imagine what those things felt like and were like isn't really helpful to either one of us, but we can talk about the reality of grief in our lives. But there are some of you in the sound of my voice, I know, because I know this group pretty well, some of you know what it's like to lose a child. Some of you know what it's like to lose a child to failed adoption. Some of you know what it's like to experience infant mortality and what that is like. Some of you know that. Now think about how you know those things. Those aren't just facts that you know. They're life experience that you have had. It includes a whole lot of feeling and emotion and humanity in all of that. We know those things because of all of our human experience and feelings and emotion and intellect. It all comes together in our knowing. And this is why artificial intelligence will never know anything. It can't have experience. It can't have feelings, even though Commander Data somehow did through that in Star Trek. That was science fiction. Can't have feelings. Can't process information in the same way that we do, because we're created in the image of God, who also has feelings, who also has emotions, who also has relationships. That's another part of it, too. Part of being created in the image of God is being created to be in relationship. God exists in ever eternal, ongoing, loving relationship of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We, being created in his image, are created for relationship. Our families, our churches, a lot more we could say about that. Joel has preached about this a number of times. We're made for community. AI is not. Artificial intelligence will never experience community. It will never learn in community. It will never experience the togetherness like we have. Never be able to do that, because that's a very human thing that we experience in that human way. And thirdly, I want us to remember this too. When we discern from the scriptures what are the most important and best things about life, Jesus told us that in the Beatitudes of the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Humility is a great thing. Artificial intelligence will never be able to generate that. Blessed are those who mourn. AI is never going to be able to mourn. Blessed are the meek. Never going to experience meekness. Blessed are the merciful. Computer program can't be merciful. The greatest and best things about our lives and the way we go about it is not something that an artificial intelligence program can do. It's human. It's humanity. We talk every Sunday about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Things that a computer program, that AI can never artificially make. It can mimic it. It can tell us what self-control looks like. Kristen just showed that to us, but it's not telling us that out of human experience. It's telling us that out of facts off of a piece of paper. It's a way of knowing things, but not the way that we know and experience things. As we deal with AI, if you've fallen asleep on me, if you've not followed, don't take anything else away from what I've said this morning. What I want you to do as you live your life interacting with AI is grasp and understand your humanity. You are created in the image of God. You're given a personality that a machine can never understand, let alone have. You are a person made in the image of God, with unique and powerful abilities to know and to be, with an intellect that works very differently than the artificial one that's coming at us. AI is great, has great potential, presents us with great challenges, but let's not let it challenge our understanding of who we are as God's precious children.